Hello and welcome to the new Leviathan update related video. Currently, I'm playing on patch 1.31.2, which still has a lot of bugs, and that's why you haven't seen new guide videos on this channel. I want to wait one more patch, give the devs a chance to fix most of the worst bugs in game that we know exist. There are a lot of them, before I start cracking on those nation guides. In the meantime though, I have been playing a ton of EU4 on my Twitch channel. If you don't follow me there, make sure to check it out at twitch.tv/RadioRes. There's also a link in description. On Twitch, I've been playing as Portugal, as I wanted to check out the new changes to colonization with the new colony types. With Leviathan, now we can designate a colony as a crown colony, a private enterprise, or a self-governing colony. You can see all the modifiers here, but the major differences between these are that crown colony gives the most land force limit and manpower bonus contribution to the overlord. Private enterprise gives the most naval force limit and sailors bonus to the overlord, and also they have a better economy based by themselves. Self-governing colony gets a colonist so they can expand faster in the new world. Broadly, that's what defines each colony type. Further, there are certain interactions you can only do with specific colony types. For crown colonies, you can get a bit more land force limit, more treasure fleet income in exchange for increased liberty desire. You can also give the colony plus 1% missionary strength, which is really good when you're going for one faith playthroughs. Now, whether the AI colony will use those missionaries properly is another question, and I have not tested that part yet, but that option is pretty good to have. For private enterprise colonies, you can get a bit of naval force limit, national tax, global trade power in exchange for increased liberty desire. Or you can also have more cash crops in the newly colonized province in that colony, which means better trade goods, which will translate to more money for you. For self-governing colonies, you can easily decrease their liberty desire further and give them more modifiers for trade, tax, manpower, or sailors. Now, most of these interactions for all three colony types are not that important, but it's really great to have these options as you can further customize your colonial subjects to your liking. And I think the cash crops option and the extra missionary strength option are super useful in particular circumstances. So, how do all these new colonization changes affect the gameplay really? In the previous patches, the optimal play was to never colonize yourself. Instead, I would just vassalize an AI colonizer and let them colonize for me, then eventually integrate them and have the colonies for myself. This way I could save on all that colonization costs, and also I didn't have to take exploration or expansion ideas, saving me all those monarch points and idea slots. Of course, I'm talking about optimal play here. You could still play a regular colonizer game if you liked in previous patches. I personally tend to enjoy colonization games every now and then, as I find them pretty chill and very relaxing. And that's one of the reasons why I really like the changes in the new patch, because now I think playing as a colonizer is actually the optimal play. So if you're starting as Portugal or Castile or England or Norway, or France even maybe, it might be better to take exploration expansion ideas and set up the colonies by yourself in the current patch. There are two big reasons for this change when we compare it to the last patch. First, you can prioritize the colony type better than the AI. My strategy is to let the newer colonies colonize as fast as possible. So for Brazilian and La Plata colonies, I would start them as self-governing colonies so they get that extra colonist and they can colonize faster. For the Mexican colony, I might start them as private enterprise so they have a better economy and support more troops, and they can help me expand into Mesoamerican natives with their armies. But eventually, every colony will be changed to crown colony type, because the amount of manpower and land force limit you get from them is insanely strong. And this is true for both single player and multiplayer games right now. Although I'm sure multiplayer communities are going to play on a mod that decreases those crown colony bonuses. But the fact remains that crown colonies are the end game meta. The second big reason you might want to set up the colonies yourself instead of relying on the AI is that in the current patch, AI sucks at colonization, especially in North America. I think it's because of the sheer amount of tags in NA who tend to take up most of the provinces in NA, and most of them have reformed to regular government types early enough, so they aren't as much as a pushover as they used to be in previous patches. Whatever the reason, AI isn't colonizing as aggressively in the current patch. So I think the colonization game has changed. I think colonization not only gives you more ducats, but also more manpower, more force limit, and access to more parts of the world earlier in game. If you are curious about the colonization costs and cost of changing colony types, which by the way it costs 1000 ducats to change the colony type from one type to another, in my Portugal playthrough by 1644, I have a fairly strong economy making 600 ducats a month with over 50% of that in trade. I have spent in total 450,000 ducats in game so far, which means I've made that amount of money. 68,000 of that on buildings, 36,500 on trade company investments, and I've only spent 4,146 ducats on colonists. That's a really small amount to spend on colonization, and it's mainly because I tend to expel minorities, which makes colonization free with the exploration idea set. In this playthrough, I've also had more mana than I knew what to do with, and this was a super chill playthrough actually, and I'm sure people here who are on Twitch would attest to that. You can optimize a pure colonization game much better than this playthrough. But the point remains that colonization will give you a lot of ducats very easily, which would translate into more monarch points. And the crown colonies will give you a lot of free manpower and land force limit. Combine all those bonuses and colonization starts to look a bit too good for both single player and multiplayer games. If all that hasn't convinced you yet, here's the cherry on top. There's a monument in South America, the Machu Picchu, which gives minus 15% idea cost among other things. And you can get to that fairly early as a colonizer. Although make sure you don't form a colonial nation there, as you don't get the bonus from monuments if it's held by your subjects, at least in this patch. So I released a vassal there, cored a couple of provinces, and gave the rest to my Colombian and La Plata colonial nations. I don't need to tell you that minus 15% idea cost discount is a pretty insane modifier to have. So given how my Portugal game progressed, I think colonization is a very viable strategy and might be worth prioritizing when playing even Castile or England. I will have to test it with France to see how well it works, and we will do that when I release the France nation guide. Keep a lookout for that and other nation guides. There are some very spicy strategies you can pull off in this new patch, and make sure you're subscribed here so you don't miss out on future videos. Before I end this video, I want to send a sincere thanks to my patrons over at Patreon. Their support means a lot to me and helps me keep this channel going. I recently updated the Patreon perks, so now you can get things like an updated monument tier list and hangout sessions with me. I'm still working on making more tier lists that would be available and updated regularly for the patrons. Go check it out at patreon.com/RadioRes. There's a link in description, and support me if you like the content. And that's all for today. You are watching a RadioRes guide. Thank you for your time, and I'll see you all in the next one.